Well, hello there, everybody. How are y'all doing? So good to be back in the old seat again, as they would say. Thank you for tuning in. It's much appreciated. And thank you, like they say, hitting the like button. And, if you haven't subscribed, well, think about it, appreciate it. Let's see, getting everything over here set. And there we go, as the bus is been all clean, disinfected, got the incense going. Choose whatever seat you like with whatever aroma, just get into it. So, sit back and relax. We'll have a fun discussion today, no doubt about it. Speaking favor over us all, nothing missing, nothing broken. And as we used to say, be of service to others. Yeah, Bosto, baby. So, how are y'all? So good to see you. I had things I had to do last week, cut our meetings a little short, but hey, it was all good. And, as we continue to suffer this incredible dry spell. If this group wants to do something, let's do a group manifestation of like abundant rain for the Midwest, going on, well, over 3 weeks now. No rain, but hey, we got the sunshine all the time, right? Anyway, hope you had a good weekend. Hello, everyone in the chat room. Didn't get to do our get together last night. We had an unexpected, one of those phone calls you get, you know. So I had a close friend that made the transition unexpectedly. I guess, yeah, I guess all of our deaths, in a sense, are unexpected. Often said, if a person could tell the future, then would you want to know the exact moment that you are going to die? You're going to drop dead, baby. Would you like to know that? That would be a true fortune teller, wouldn't it? Yeah. Most people are like, no freaking way. So think about that. But anyway, it is already set. Each and every one of us have that chosen moment. It is equal or greater than to the moment that you came into existence, into this reality, this realm. And the significance of you going out is even bigger. Now, I don't know if what we did prior to coming in here, did that have an influence of what happened to us while we were here? Did it make decisions for us? Did we come to beliefs? I mean, are all new souls, are they born what? They have a belief system, what? They're Republican, Democrat, agnostic, what? But leaving, it seems to have a great bearance on what you believe here, not what you believed out there before you came in here, but what you believed while you were here. We have this weird, sick thing that, well, that carries over to the other side. No proof of that, but that's what we believe. But anyway, hello, chat room. How is everybody out there? So, yeah, so we're going to have to get together, we'll get together next week. Let me just say hello to everybody in the chat room. By the way, answer the question. Do you believe God is dead? And don't get all, you know, philosophical on me. Someone said, well, you have to define the God. And no, 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 no. We ain't playing that game. What we're saying is in the construct of Western culture. All right. How about we do that? Hey, Bonnie. I love this group. Anyway, so who else is hanging out there? Chloe, how you're good to see you, dear. Missed you as well. Gilbert, good to see you, brother, even on your POS phone. It's all right, you didn't miss anything. Peter, good to see you. Yeah, make a playlist. It'd be really long. In my iTunes library, I have enough music that you could listen to it 24 hours a day for about 60 plus days. Never repeat. That's pretty good. Jackie, what's up? Good to see you. Joyce, hello, darling. Millie, good to see you. And Gogo from Croatia. Nina, how are you, darling? Good to see you. Hello, Josh. Mr. Floyd, what's up, brother? Let's see. Millie, good to see you. Grandpa Brian. Got to actually meet Brian. He stopped by the house and yeah, it was really a good opportunity. It's really something when you actually get to meet in person, physically. Love Luna. He's got a beautiful, beautiful husky. Young one, but a lot of that dog has some spirit. I'm just telling you. So, brother, love you, man. Good to see you as well. Who else? Lost in Space. Good to see you. Deborah, hello, darling. Rick, hello. What's up, brother? Sending you a healing there. Scotty boy, good to see you. And Jet, Colleen, good to see you. DC. God, the supreme or ultimate reality, such as the being perfect in powers, wisdom, and goodness, who is worshipped as in Judaism. That God doesn't exist, Bonnie. At least, I would say that the debate, um, that God doesn't exist. I mean, why would it be substituted or an imposter? I mean, if you're saying as in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, well, that's actually one religion. But that isn't the only religion, and neither is Hinduism as creator and rule of the universe. There's no evidence that any God rules anything. I mean, this is part of the discussion. We're just talking in here. But yeah, it would have to say, if that is true, then we are truly fucked because we don't know what God is. We can use words, but yeah. I mean, and it's relevant to this discussion. Love the conversation, darling. Dave, good to see you as well. And if I've missed you, well, not by purpose. I'm trying to get in there. Let's go. Wait. So, no, but you know, it's interesting because we're in a thing right now. It's happening. God is dead, and we killed him. I mean, that was Nazi in 1889 or something back there, late 1900, 20th century. Um, and it's been taken so far out of context as to what he was really talking about. But what he warned us about in as a philosophy, as a philosopher, is happening. Um, it's very evident that we create these gods, we worship these gods, and that gives them life, energy. Um, that's why it's death for a god when they have no more worshipers. I always thought it was interesting in my Bible studies in the book of Psalms, and I think it's Psalms 84. Do you know that this God, the Hebrew, Christian, Islam God, the Abrahamic God, is going to die? Yeah. Now it's interesting in there because that's where we get introduced to this El Supremo, you know, somehow, some way. I guess there's a supreme deity that has a bigger thing and swings it bigger than anyone else, including these gods. These gods get together in the council, and this God was rebuked, said, man, you screwed up the one thing that you had to do. The one thing, you only had to do one thing. That is, you were to watch that creation, that thing, which we call Adam. You were to protect him. You were to be there in the front, you were to be there the back and the sides. That's all you had to do. And you screwed it up. And as the curse goes, you know why this God curses? Because he's under a curse. So El Supremo says, hey, listen, what happened to Adam is going to happen to you. Well, if you believe the story, Western culture, then Adam died. Death was introduced. So apparently, this God wasn't the creator of anything, a usurper, imposter. And if you really want to get real serious about it, calling love the exchange, it really comes down to Enki and Enlil. Now, of course, that is not excluding what the rest of the world, the other races, their gods. I mean, we as a species, we are like, we love making up gods. It's true. It's we're really good at it. So Nietzsche was saying, God is dead and humanity killed it. Humanity is the murderer. You think about this. The religion, the religion that has, they say they have, several billion people that follow, and we're going to talk about that. Um, the whole religion is founded and based upon murder. That's the whole theme. Murder. And I have said this before, no Jesus is coming back. No God's going to come. No God would want to be here. They're afraid of us. And rightfully so. They should be afraid of us. Mankind is a treacherous species. You see, there is no Satan or Lucifer or the father of lies. We're the father of lies. We've been lying to ourselves from day one because either we came from a test tube or we are nothing more than walking golems. I mean, depending on what your point of view is. But we, as a species, we murder, we kill. If you say something against my political beliefs, I'm going to kill you, man. Yeah. See a number of movies on that. But that's how it is. You want to kill the other person. The Cathars, I mean, the Rosicrucians, all murdered. Why? Because they had a different God. Apparently, that God was more powerful than the sitting God. And so, look at the vitriol today. I mean, people are so freaking tense. You could shove up a piece of coal up their ass, and they would shit out a diamond. That's how uptight most of the people are. And the system is designed to keep that spinnaker even more tight. You put a pound of coal up there, you get a beautiful 1 ounce diamond. That's how uptight people are. And then you got this whole thing of where, well, we're going to censor you because if you don't go with this and that, and you could say, well, you ought to shove that up your ass, but you can't shove it up their ass because their head is up their ass. That's the problem. The gray matter is now fecal matter. In truth, we don't know the first thing about truth. And anyone who says they do, you can bet on your ass to ask them to find it. Truth. We don't know what truth is. Truth is, I guess, wherever you happen to be centered. It seems to be going where it is. Scotty Boy said, that's a type spin. You bet your ass it is, brother. But that is exactly what's going on. You want to know where these lab created diamonds come from? Humans. I mean, people are asses are so tight that, I mean, it's ridiculous. And you can see it in their face. Well, they got this face, like, man. But anyway, so Nietzsche said, God is dead. Now, it's interesting. So we're going to talk about the fact that in the Western culture, we're watching a phenomenon some said was going to happen. You don't have to be a prophet to predict that every religion starts basically from nothing, it'll reach a pinnacle, and then it declines. Well, we're seeing that right now. And what makes that so dangerous is that belief systems are important. Every one of us have a belief system. Hopefully, if you're in this group, I would say that you do. But to a larger and larger percentage and degree, more and more, and particularly it's affecting the younger generations, they are truly inheriting this void. You see, if you remove a religion, an ideology, theology from a culture, and it begins to dissipate and wean out, and there's nothing to fill that void, that gap, that's when things get dangerous. Because humans cannot operate without a belief system. There has to be some supportive structure within their ego and their psyche that allows them to find balance. If not for this themselves, then they'll try to spread that out. That's what religion does. And religion does serve a purpose. Religion, regardless of what form or structure it is, has rules. It has limitations. It has creeds. It has doctrines. And these creeds, doctrines, limits is what frames society. Otherwise, you would have complete chaos and anarchy. Oh, gee. And so it's that double-edged sword. But when a religion dies, and those who were fervent believers begin to lose faith, trust, belief, and this goes for governments as well. This is why governments collapse. The people lose faith in them. And when you have this void, you typically will have war. And it seems like you have to have a gleaming, and you can seem to almost start out with a new slate. So it has been history. So with a religion, a pillar of that foundation, when it begins to dissolve, if there's nothing to replace it, then you have humans will revert to nihilism. And nihilism is probably the most dangerous conditions of consciousness. Because when a human soul or spirit, however you want to define it, when they lose that core belief system, if it's not replaced with something, then you have the void. Life becomes basically meaningless. You begin to look at supportive structures, and in this case, typically materialism, but there are other substitutes. Politics. Politics is a great aphrodisiac. I mean, if you're into politics, you're into fucking. I mean, that's just all it is, because everybody is fucking everybody else. And so that's why you see people revert to that. It's very interesting to see what the statistics are saying about this technology now. Do you know the number one growth industry that has beaten all other industries, have beaten everything of the S&P, the Dow 30? Pornography. Adult websites, sexual, now that you're moving into alternative reality, And it's always been the porn industry. The porn industry has been the driver of technology. I know I came from the video film industry, spent well over 20 years of my life in that industry. And the one thing about it, I mean, it was the adult industry that brought us VHS. We should have been on beta. Beta was a higher technology and better quality, but no. Everybody was buying the porn on the VHS because the VHS was cheaper. And then it was the adult industry that began to perfect it and working with companies out there. I won't name them, but I do know who they are. Um, that broke the problem we had with CD-ROM was to be able to condense the information, the byte size, down into a format that where you could put large amounts of information on a very small disk. It was the porn industry, the adult industry that pushed that. And all through the transition to what we have today, when the internet came about, it was the porn industry that drove the traffic. And so, what does that say to us as a culture? Well, it typically, when you see that, and there have been different psychologists, different theologists, and philosophers for that, who will talk to you because you don't hear that on this. Why is it that people are drawn to porn? And it's not it used to be, or the perception was, the male to female ratio. The male was far out with the females. That's no longer the case. You ladies should be happy to know that your side of the sex of our species is now embraced it wholeheartedly. Um, so, and it could be discussed at, well, when you see a culture begin to move to that, in this case, sex, what does that say? I mean, it's in direct conflict with the morals, but who's setting the moral standards? But anyway, getting back to this, when that foundation is pulled out, that's why it's so dangerous when you stop believing in your government. You stop participating in your government. Because I can assure you, you're going to get the bad hombres in there. And that's why today, most people see governments as corrupt, that they no longer serve the people, that they serve their own agenda. Starting to make sense? And then the last step of that process, because no matter what it is, that if you devoid the spiritual aspect of our existence and just simply say, well, it's carnal knowledge and it's just the experience on the physical plane, we humans have a tendency to exit out, because Dionysus would tell you, the god of pleasure, there's only so much pleasure, and then pleasure becomes pain. And when pleasure starts to move over to pain, and where pain is now more sought after than the pleasure, you can begin to see how the dominoes begin to fall. Um, I'll have to go back and read some of these comments. I only get to see it at a little side there. Uh, but again, what Friedrich Nietzsche was saying is that nihilism will be where we revert to. And when we start getting into nihilism, we even sink lower than our animalistic tendencies. Because when you strip that out of the ego, of the psyche, of the average person, there is a death that begins to take place within that person. And so, um, I'm just reading some of the comments. Hello, Max. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Um, What do you say, Desiree? Ignoring is different than rejecting. It has something to worship. So, yeah. So, yeah, Chloe, I'm right there with you, darling. Hey, John, good to see you. Mary wins. Hello, darling. Um, so, I want to get into one of the articles I pulled up on this because I love this topic. I was going to continue on the hybrids, but actually, this is really much in tune to this. You see, I contend what's wrong with society today, and as you look out there on the landscape, we have devoided the spiritual aspect. Mainstream media and everyone else, reject it, spiritual, because you basically have a theology that has hijacked the ideology of religion, that religion doesn't apply to spirit. It uses the spirit really doesn't need a religion, but a religion needs a spirit. But we've kind of devoid this, and we've lost the humanity. If you look at today's political environment, we've lost the humanities. We've replaced a lie with the truth, deception. It's just off the scale. And when that happens, and it's been happening for a while, excuse me, the that other pillar, pros or cons, doesn't matter. It has still been a stabilizing aspect, and particularly here in Western culture, is Christianity. And so, um, and this is not something that's new. Actually, it's been building for a long time. Let me bring this out. Here we go. Um, So this is from a website, philosophybreak.com. It says, God is dead. Nietzsche's most famous statement is explained. It said, God is dead. That's the German philosopher, old Friedrich, famously declared in his 1882 work, The Gay Science, God remains dead and we have killed him. By these words, Nietzsche does not so much mean that atheism is true. Indeed, in the passage from which they're taken, these words are presented as fresh news to a group of atheists. He more means that because the belief in the Christian God has become unbelievable, everything that was built upon this faith, propped up by it, grown into it, including the whole of the European mortality, is destined for collapse. We are living that right now. We're seeing that collapse. And history will write as to how this turns out. It would appear that it is pretty bloody. Um, I don't know how else to really say it. Excuse me as I get up here. So as I continue to go over there, as I get back over here, so there we go. So how do we counter a collapse of morality? If morality has served as the foundation for all structures, civil, religious, political, morals, integrity, all these aspects, well, when those pillars collapse, then what do we replace it with? I mean, the whole idea that God, and he was not so much saying, God in the construct within that religion. Now, there is some really interesting things when we talk about this void and how it started. And for myself, as an observer, because I was a born again, tongue talking, um, name it, claim it, born again, spirit filled Christian. I knew in Malachi, the third chapter, exactly where I stood. I knew exactly where my name was written. In fact, I had seen it in visions as to what that day would be when I would learn my true name. I was convinced. Now, within those structures, that's why you have like 33,000 different schisms, different denomination and beliefs under this umbrella called Christianity. But nevertheless, it influenced Western culture, Western belief. I contend that what we're seeing right now is the single largest shift in consciousness. We probably haven't seen something like this in over 2,000 years. We're living it right now. I wrote in here, Western religion has been dying almost from its inception. Because it seems that when you walk outside the constraints of a belief system, well, then everything's up for grabs. If you use that as the litmus test, the benchmark for what truth is, and when that truth no longer becomes relevant or no longer can be relied upon, then the lie would naturally take its place, right? Come on, philosophers. We're naked philosophy here. We bear everything. Um, so if the lie has now replaced the truth, what does that leave us? It leads us into chaos. So we began to see this as particularly, I've got a couple of things I want to bring up here, just to bring out how radical this is. This is a study by the Pew Research in 2019. I have newer ones now that I'll be talking about these numbers. So in the United States, the decline of Christianity continues at a rapid pace. Now, this again is a phenomenal research paper. It was put out by the Pew Research Center, again, 2019. Now, this is significant because prior to COVID, prior to the lockdowns, and churches were not deemed an absolute necessity. Now, I'm on the record for saying that when this was undertaking, it's in the archives. And if you go over to Artists First, you can go into their archives and you'll see under the Steiger perspective, I got even deeper into this. That when this took place and as it was taking place, that because of the lockdowns, it broke the spell. And it's interesting because particularly if you live in Western Europe and the United States, this affects us all because we can see it in society now. We can see it in our political structure. You can see it within religions. Never before have we seen the collapse of churches that have gone in default. Back in the day when I was bringing out the first mobile giving platform, mega churches were the big deal. I was dealing with churches that were bringing in on a weekly basis, some cases $1 to $4 to $5 million a week. But there was an interesting phenomenon because this was in 2018, 2019. I found it interesting that this was the Trump years, by the way. It said that 65% of American adults describe themselves as Christian. So if you just use a round number, 300 million, well, you can see that if you have 65% of 300 million, you've got about 240 plus million Americans who would have associated themselves as Christians. So what that means is that if you go out on the street, chances are that if you met 5 people, 3 of them would be Christians. You can see what kind of influence that is. Ronald Reagan got elected because of the evangelical vote. Trump hasn't been able to do that effectively as Reagan did, but then 2 different times. It was the evangelicals that elected Reagan. And of course, when those evangelicals became disappointed, disillusioned, didn't happen again. It says, and when asked about their religion, down 12 percentage points over the past decade. Meanwhile, so you already had over a 10% drop that was naturally occurring. It was naturally eroding. And I was in that group. I left the church and my religion, seemed right about that 2010 when things began to really shift. Now, as we've talked about, you had those doubts, but something radically changed. And I wasn't alone. It was the beginning of the single largest exodus of a belief system. It says, meanwhile, the religiously unaffiliated share of the population, consisting of people who describe their religious identity as atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, those are the nones, now stand at 26%, up from 17 in 2009. Now, this number is as alarming if you're of one particular power structure. That number now in that 26%, I have an article, and I got to make sure because I got a lot of stuff I want to cover, is now reaching closer to the upper 30s. And as you can see into the chart, the decline. Now, folks, we're dealing with millions of people. A lot of us that are probably watching this are very much a part of this. Now, if you come from more of an agnostic upbringing, consider yourself in many ways blessed, as they would say. So we saw both Protestantism and Catholicism, they were losing their congregates. And when you lose people who are not sitting in the pew each Sunday, and when the offering plate comes around, that's when it gets really serious, when it starts hitting you in your pocketbook. Again, and I was doing a study into this and just looking at some of the numbers. You had at one time churches building these huge, almost mini arenas. Could hold 10, 15,000. Joel Osteen's old Compact Center, I think they can hold 25,000 or so. But many of those are now no longer in existence. And so it goes to say that it says, and now this is 19, and then after the pandemic, the lockdowns, these numbers collapsed. And I'll actually bring that up. I think I actually closed the page out, but I'll get it. So again, 1 in 5 adults, 20% are Catholic, down from 23%. Protestants down to 51%, and that number now is in the mid 40s. It's a huge collapse all the way, and you're seeing this as well in virtually every aspect of our lives. This has a direct impact. And so basically, religion is becoming very unpopular. Now, what's interesting, I was reading this morning that the subject of the occultism, is exploding. One person who wrote an article was saying that when you look at the spiritualist movement that took place at the end or the transition of the Industrial Revolution, there was this resurgence. And the thing about it is, the resurgence has always been there. When Protestantism came in, its number one competition was occultism, spirituality, spiritualist. And you could look at it from market share, they began to erode that. And of course, when they started getting power by the larger numbers and by the larger money coming in, then they began to suppress the gnosis of the occult knowledge, and particularly with spiritualism. And when you saw there was a period of time in the Puritan age in the Americas, that's when we had our witch trials. And, you would literally, if I was teaching what I teach now, back then, well, my family, myself, my wife and our children would probably, the girls would have been raped, sexually tormented before they were put to a very painful death. I would be forced to watch that. And as they looted my house and our possessions, then they would burn it. And then finally, I would be dealt with. Yeah. And the numbers are alarming. This is what's really happening today. You have this fear now that has become rooted within the constraints of Christianity as a whole, is that because the loss is becoming so great that they don't know how to counter it. The internet has been probably its single greatest weapon. They can't, they tried to adapt to it, but unfortunately, it was way too late. Again, if you're adapting to a technology that was based upon sex, pretty strong thing you have to really come against. So anyway, if you want this, it's quite the article. They really get into the fact that we're seeing it now. We are almost 5 years from post-pandemic lockdowns, and who would have ever had thought that short period of time, how it changed the very culture that our society was built upon. And the one that affected it the most, again, was religion. So when we get into nihilism, this is what has been the fallback. That's why I keep saying, and Guy, you're right. If us occultists would only unify. Now, the danger is that, it could become organized. And we just merely repeat the same problem that we're trying to help correct. But I think I would rather run the risk of being an organized unity than to continue the fractures of what we're seeing. Because unless we bring in a purpose for living, and that comes through our philosophy, again, which then becomes built into our belief system. If we do not replace that void, I don't know if we can recover from it. This is an interesting book, actually. But I wanted to come in because they're dealing with the seriousness of nihilism. When a human, again, becomes where they have no basic belief system, and what it's saying, they don't have any trust. And that also carries over to the individual. Nihilism is the complete disavowalment of self-belief. You don't believe in yourself anymore. And sadly, if that affects younger people, they can go down a very dark path in which they are. The youth of today, and I'm sure this was represented in Europe as well, suicide. Now, suicide has always been an issue where teens are concerned. Back in the day, I worked with a nonprofit. Billy Joel actually did the song on the thing, and it was dealing with kids under 21, kudo, of, suicide prevention. And the thing about it is that back then there was a belief system. The first thing you have to do is to shore up that young person's mind, um, that they can believe in themselves. And it doesn't necessarily have to have such rigid structure to it. And it said in philosophy, in a meaningless life, he says, I went out to reaffirm the question of the meaning of life in the face of outdated positivistic instincts, the scientific and anti-religious sentiment that pervades much of contemporary intellectual culture, and in no small dose, I think, an existential discomfort that makes people reluctant to take up such questions. That's what I love about this group. We will tackle these questions. It's not all the fun and games. You know, Russell Crowe and Gladiator. Are you entertained? Is that your whole freaking existence? Is to entertain? Yeah. I mean, that's what commercialism is built upon. It's not to deal with the inner aspect of it, is to continue to pile on, you know, consume more. Debt. Don't worry about it. You can pay it off. And what we find ourselves in is not nihilism, but it is the cruelest of all slaveries. Our minds become no longer our own. We lose and lost our souls, if we ever had one. And they have hijacked our spirit energy. It's like if you meet someone, which I did this very recently, who had a very strong Christian belief, particularly in the area of death and what follows afterwards. And if anything came against that belief system, it was vehemently rejected. There's absolutely no room for counter to it. And in one aspect, it's a defense mechanism. I get it. I mean, if you happen to believe in a system, I saw someone write, I think it was Witch Moon, said I, believe in Jesus, and that's cool. I don't. I mean, what was the purpose of this dude? And there was no one named Jesus that has ever walked this planet. But I digress. But it's cool because, when I was 15 and 16 living in the street there in Houston, Texas, in the Montrose area, I mean, I loved the children of God. Number one, they brought food and sandwiches to, the venues. We were at a place called Miller's Park. And, the Hare Krishna people, I love the incense. And for myself, it was a trip. Many times I was seeing it through the eyes of LSD, but um, it was cool. You know, had some good sex with some of those children of God. I mean, I'm just telling you, the love was there. But anyway, I digress. It was a very cool thing, you know. Now, it was one thing to, shout out your belief system. It was another thing when, there, I digress. But anyway, getting back to the point is that even if you have that removed, I mean, um, it's interesting because I watch film and I study film even today, and I see where a lot of the directors are going. And there is this weird uh, thing that the particularly the film industry in dealing with spirituality is that you either have this extreme right point of view or you got this extreme dark, right? And they can't seem to find the middle ground, because spiritualism isn't that and it isn't that. Unfortunately, we have been hijacked by a belief system that has altered. I contend, as I said last Wednesday on the show, that I don't think we really know what love is. We've been told, we experience, but if you have to understand, is that they say you can never fall in love, really fall in love, until you had your heart broke. And they called it puppy love. You learn from that. Boy, that first strike, cuts deep. But we seem to recover from it, and we seem to begin to form within us then what we perceive love to be. As a kid, I never could quite figure that out. Didn't see much of that. But that's the point. And within all that, myself and many, many others, many of you, speaking to you directly, we were able to still fashion and build our core beliefs, those things that even what we saw, we would reject and still hold on to that belief. Love, you know. I recently was telling someone again, yes, I quote it quite regularly because I haven't found anything else that's ever come against it. I know it by heart. You know, 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. That's what love is to me. And the problem is within humanity, none of us match up to it. It's an ideal. It's Elysium. It's Nirvana. It's paradise. It's heaven where we will find love. Because that which is within us is what drives us. And it's that desire and need for love that within my generation, as I lived it, that helped us not to fall into nihilism. I mean, I still had, those spiritual abilities, that hunger. And it's been representative in my life because you can see exactly as my life and the road that I've chosen, it has always been that. And it was always the belief, no matter what, in myself, that I never fell into nihilism. But today, it's alarming to see that the size of the population that now would fall into more being nihilist than anything else. And that has a whole issue in philosophy as well. I have another one. In this one, it was this author was talking about Japan and how nihilism is something that they fear, and it has now invaded and eroded, in their case, 5,000-6,000 years of a belief system that has defined them as a people, as a race. And in this one, it's very serious. I mean, we should all be concerned that if you see more and more people, particularly younger people, falling into this thing where they will tell you they're nihilist. that becomes a problem. And if that continues, particularly at the rate that it's going, well, it has an impact on everything that we could consider part of life. It gets into the human soul. And that is really kind of, as we round this up, um, if we can't find a way to agree and to come in unity and begin to spread that out, talking to one friend or talking to someone, you know, as one kind lady was saying, you have such a wonderful outlook on life. And then when she found out how old I wasn't that far from her, but she looked a whole lot older. And she said, how do you do that? And I said, because I'm unique as to who I am. I said, this is what the experience is. And I said, if I can still come through all of this and still say at the end, thank you, I've succeeded in every way. And I think that's the responsibility that we all have here as well, is being able to take that, not only live it, but do it in such a manner that it makes us desirous to others. I look at this in my years in doing startups. You know how you get people excited? They'll get excited by what you believe in and how your passion is, and how that passion is contagious. That's what it's about. Each one of us are aging. You're older than you were yesterday, but do you still have that joy, that Thanksgiving? I have a song I sing in the shower all the time, and it's my spirit song. And it's a song of praise and thanksgiving. I don't have all the answers. I don't want all the answers, to be honest with you. It takes all the joy out of it. You know, it's discovering the answers that's really exciting, right? Like going into the astral realms. By the way, team leader, expedition members, dreams are freaking off the chart. I mean, holy, we have opened a door. And there's a lot of spirits that have something they want to say. And yeah, each and every one of us can channel, by the way. You just got to open yourself up to it and let it flow. It's like giving a word or interpretation of tongues in about a group of 5,000 people. Screw what those people think. I know what I heard and I speak it out. But anyway, um, I love this song blue. Everybody that anyway. So Karen, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor. Yeah, that is so cool. Hey Elderberry, what's up? Wow, really good to see you. Uh yeah, that's cool, Austin Space. That's what I'm talking about. You know? And there's nothing better than to sing a song of praise and thanksgiving when you're naked. I mean, there is no mask. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Um so all right. I can see that I'm getting near the end. But anyway, I thought it was going to, and we're going to pick up on things later on the week and tomorrow with Miss Trina and Jenny. Um, but MacArthur's Park, John, yeah, I love that. That was just cool. See, Gaia gets it. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. When you're naked, I mean, yeah, that's like cool. Although I will have to say, up on the Yuba River. back in 1970, yeah, 71. Yeah. Yeah, if you're really into nude camping, yeah, there are a few precautions you should take, though. I'm just saying. But anyway, and that's really a way to get to know someone. Yeah. Get into some deep conversations. Guy says been there. Uh, I sunburnt that one particular member of a dude's body that, holy crap, who'd ever thought you can actually get sunburned? You can get your ass can get sunburned. But anyway, so I wish I had something to flop in the well, Lady Ellie, I always say just express from what the heart is speaking. That's the best way to do it. Um, wear socks. Okay, everyone. Been fun. Tune in tomorrow. We'll pick it up again, and then on Wednesday we'll continue to pick it up. Got lots of good stuff. I mean, I got more material than we'll ever be able to get to here. So anyway, um, I'm reading some of these things. Y'all are just a really good bunch of people. Much love to you all. It's fun. So anyway, as I continue to go, let's see how we can get this out. Oh, truly good to see you from down under. Yeah. So, all right, folks, have a great day. It's Prosperity Day, so get out there. Um, think about these things. It's your life. I have a belief that, what we consider to be death, a transition, is just the opportunity to really contemplate things. And the thing is, yesterday it was real interesting because, there was a lot of crying people, and it's all right. But I asked the simple question, and I said, "So, what was their greatest joy and accomplishment? What did they really enjoy doing?" And it was question, the people just stopped, and I said, "Because isn't it the celebration of their existence that's really going on here? It's not the loss of the memory; it's the fact that they left us memories to celebrate about." Each and every one of us. When that transition day comes, you want people to be joyous. You don't want them there to be crying. You don't want that energy on the other side. Heck no. Uh-uh. No. Celebrate. I just want another day of living. Yep. So, all right, folks, have fun. Been fun. And we'll pick it up tomorrow. I mean, maybe that's how we protect ourselves from the nihilism. We get to come here, you know, we get to go to the great oracle of YouTube and Google, and we can find out very anything we probably want. Yeah. All right, everyone, have good, celebrate your life, make it worth living.